So welcome. This is class number 3. Can you believe it? Going to be
I
more
know.
than halfway through the class already.
Not right somehow.
It's too fast, but since this is kind of a beginner, it does give people a taste to see if they really want to pursue it. And a few of you have definitely decided that. So that's good. I'm just bringing up my notes right now so I can share. Okay. And this one. Yeah, I had a Zoom with my Patreon group last night. We had a, whoops, that's not what I want to show. We
Oh,
had a nice meeting. Oh, that's
I have a white cat.
was my mother's cat.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to paint him.
Lots of color if they're white. Just these are our notes again. I came across another artist who talked about the thickness of the paint, the balance of the water to the paint, and she was almost the same terms I did. And you know, I'd come up with mine. But so we talk about tea instead of water, maybe call it tea because it does have some color in it. And the tea level mixed with the water is the best one if you're going to do glazes over at the end or just very, very light washes. The milk, you have a little more paint in it. It's a little thicker. Cream, again, more thick. Yogurt is quite opaque and tricky to see through. Just a moment. Okay. Somebody was outside the window. I'm like, oh my gosh. And butter is out straight out of the tube. We really won't talk about butter because you don't use the paint at that thickness, actually. So we'll call it again. I'm going to adjust my notes, but tea, milk, cream, and yogurt, that kind of all ties in together, I think, nicely. She had a difference between tea and coffee, but I think those first two stages are close enough. Yeah. And then again, reviewing, I think we could do a quick little exercise this morning to warm up, kind of working with those 4 stages. I should put the butter one in grade so it doesn't show as much like that. So those 4 consistencies of the paint in the water, and then the 4 wetness stages, the gloss, the sheen, the matte, and the dry. And that is going to concern a lot of what we do with a lot of our textures. Some of these, I was going to do this week live, but I think I'll do it next week, like trying to work with, you know how we worked with a plastic wet last week? And it had to be, you know, quick and a lot of thick paint in areas and almost no paint in other areas. Did that come through on the video, Dawn, to watch
Well,
that I sent?
I haven't looked.
Okay, no, I think it was on that one. And then the salt and different scrapings. We did some scrapings, and if you scrape during the sheen process, the paint's going to go into that little trowel and make a
Did we
dark
do the
line.
salt?
Excuse me?
Did we do
Did
this?
we not do this?
Yes.
We did this?
We did salt? Oh,
No, we didn't do salt. No.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, sorry, we didn't do the salt. So I was going to do that today, but I think I'll wait until we're all present together. That's a little tricky one. I'll send a video on trying to do it, but the others we tried. We tried the plastic, we tried the scraping, and those things. A lot of that depends on the wetness of the paper and the paint. Also, the paper makes a big difference in these stages. So it's good to kind of work through some examples of paper, some samples, and then find the one that you're most comfortable with. Hopefully it's 100% rag because that's going to work the best for everything. But even amongst those, there's a lot of differences. And then try to stick to the one that you like the best so that you become accustomed to it and familiar with how it works. And so today I thought we'd do, because we're online, some examples. And I'll send you this sheet out after the class. But we did some trees last week. There are other different types of trees. What do we do if it's like foggy and snow tinted trees of heavy wash? And if we can keep our paintings loose and light, it's going to be a light touch is what I'm saying, is going to be much more interesting paintings. So I'll practice with some trees, and then we'll try a landscape. And I have these landscapes. Here's a marsh. This is a hill mountain landscape. Probably won't do this one. I'll probably take that one. This might be the easiest one to start with because it's got aerial perspective where things fade as they go back in the distance. So that's kind of what I'm working with today. I am going to switch over to my other camera. Any questions or anything? No? Ready to paint? Let's go for it. Don't show this bottom. Yes. No. Okay. Have to keep track of all these things. This is just some paper. So when we go to look at something we might want to sketch out first, this is just drawing paper. But for right now, if we have a scrap piece of paper, I'm going to shut off my computer camera because you don't need that distracting you. Okay. Yeah, this is just a painting I did. We were talking about making marks in the snow in one of my classes. So I would like to start. I want to see what I have to here. Good. Getting used, kind of working with our brush strokes again, the wetness of the paper. I also wanted to share these brushes. I think I might have the first day. I bought some more, and they're a cartridge brush with water in it. And what you can do with these is you don't need to be carrying a tub of water with you if you're out on location or something. The water is actually in here, and you can, I gotta get the water going. Okay. And the water is in the brush itself, which is pretty nifty little item, especially if you're doing sketchbooking or something. And they're easy to use. They have a cover for the brush. Be careful when you put this back on so it doesn't bend the bristles. And then it just unscrews here, and you put water under the faucet there, put it in, and you're ready to go. Just thought I'd share those with you.
And I have one comment on those. Many of them, not all of them, are not righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. They're the opposite when you try to unscrew them.
Oh, tighty, lefty, loosey. Yeah, it depends on the brand, I think. I have tried like 3 different brands. That's a good point, Don. This is Pentel. So I have stuck with the Pentel
I've had
brand.
A couple that I've spent, like 15 minutes trying to unscrew the damn thing until I figured out it was.
I know, it keeps getting tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, I think Elaine just came in, wherever she may be. Here she comes. All right. So are you all working on rag paper today, or do you have a different type of paper?
I have a piece from my my book.
Okay.
So I can't tell if it's
all right.
rag or not.
I'm going to just play with my water here. I'm not taped down. You know me, my big box is down at the studio right now, so I don't have any boards to tape onto. But I'm going to, just practice putting down water on my paper, checking it in the light. It's pretty dry in here. This is already at the sheen stage. If I wanted to get that to the gloss stage, I would really have to just sit the water right on top of that. But we don't use the gloss stage very often. But trying to get our eye reaccustomed to how wet the paper is. And often when we do, I'm just doing squares. One area will be more wet than another. And I don't know if I can, I think I can't see you guys. All right, I'm gonna have to bring you down into my situation here. Forgive me I just got back yesterday from Winston-Salem, so I'm still a little discombobulated. Good. This way I can see what I'm showing you. Oh, and I picked up, I ordered this Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white. I've heard people talk about this, and it is supposed to be in place. It's a watercolor, but in place of acrylic or your gouache, if you need to bring some of those sparkly whites back. I haven't tried it yet. I just opened it up this morning, but I've had people say that it's really good. All right, so yeah, now I can see, even you can see the light, how shiny the paper is. So try to get, you know, tilted into the light so you can see that.
Hey,
And then we'll
Terry,
start,
Terry,
yeah,
would you send
ma'am.
us that information about that white?
The bleed proof white. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me write it down because I will try to remember, but thanks to start. Yeah, anything you think you'd like to have, and I'm going to send some more examples out, like those sheets I just showed you. I am going to have those to send to you, which are right here. I tried to get them onto my iPad to use this morning. Okay, that's not the one I want. I want this one. There we go. So we did some trees last week. If we can do that a little bit again, just picking up some paint. I'm going to start with some ultramarine blue.
So do we want our
Yes.
whole area wet, or do we want just that square corner wet?
I was just practicing my dampness at that. So I'm just going to now practice some just trees. So this area of the tree will be dry brush. So we're going to do, you know, the paper will be dry and we're going to paint over that. And I'm going to mix up color first so it's well prepared. And I have a good amount. I'm not going to make a big drawing. Pick this up. Somebody's singing there. That looks like a good start. I know I'm going to run out. I don't have a lot, but remember to do, let me check my shadows here for you. I don't want too much of a shadow with my brush. Okay, it looks pretty good. I go up to the tip tops and the branches reach up. We did these, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And then as you go down, you can add a little maybe burnt umber or more blue, just to change the color in the tree and make it a little more interesting. As we go towards the base, maybe some neutral tint or black.
What did you have
And then
in there to begin with? Ultramarine and what?
ultramarine, and this is not my palette. I'm borrowing this palette from my friend. Ultramarine, and I think I just added a little sap green.
Okay.
If you don't have sap green, use ultramarine, and almost any of your yellows will give you a good color.
Okay.
Let me tilt this slightly bit more. There. Okay. I'm going to do another tree, a little taller. So I'm holding my brush further back. I'm letting it dance. This one's going to be a little off in the distance, so I'm going to add a little cerulean into it to make it fade a little more into the distance, possibly. I say possibly because you never quite know. And then this sometimes is where happy accidents happen. So we have a couple trees. I'm going to clean my brush, get most of the water out on my sponge, and then take a damp brush, this, and just, all I have right now in my brush is water. So if I bring it across here, it will kind of blend in that base to have, it creates almost automatically some shadows under the trees. If you want them to be a little deeper, you can grab something darker and just touch it under here to create more shadows. But it's good to do little warm-ups to get our hand relaxed. Now these trees that I have don't look like the ones that I had that I'm working from, but they're kind of fun. Kind of nice. Good with trees. I want to give you a chance to paint.
And we put burnt umber in that, did we?
You can put burnt umber down toward the bottom. I had some burnt umber down in here. And you think that kind of is a good color to use because you're getting down near the ground and the trunks and some shadow area. So you want something a little deeper and darker. You could even put a soft violet kind of red in there if you wanted to, just to kind of neutralize some of that area. Just because they're trees don't mean they have to be totally all green. I do a workshop on greens where I show how different underpaintings and tints of other colors influence the greens in a landscape. Y'all painting along right now, playing with trees? Let me go
Yeah.
see if I can find that. This is great. See, I've got my computer right here, so maybe I can find this for you. Or maybe not. I don't know how these things work. Oops, under my teaching. I always try to organize. No. That's dumb. Online. It is. Yeah. All right, I'm going to turn my other camera back on and just share this with you. This is a watercolor painting. I did not do it, someone else did, and I put it through a digital process. So you can see here, this person did a landscape of green, and it's almost like too green. The greens are overwhelming. There's nothing in here much but green. But then I did a digital glaze over it, and just if you squint down, just squint your eyes, and you can see how that blue over the green in the center there pushes it back. And then this red kind of neutralizes or kind of grays down this central area. And then the yellow really pulls that green forward. So here's, come on, paper. There's the original. And see how this, with your eyes squinted down, how much more depth it feels like it has?
Yeah.
Because you can put other colors in. So it's not just boom, green and green. My mother always said, oh, a green landscape is poison because it can be overwhelming. So that's quick. So we worked up with some trees. Let's try a deciduous tree like this one here. I covered up my areas. So what do we want to think about when we're doing something like this? Let me check my lightness. Yep, that's up full. Is a lot of people, when they're doing a tree, will think about the shape, you know, it's basically an oval shape. And then within that, you have smaller shapes. But then they'll draw the tree trunk and the branches through everything. But if you look at it carefully, there's areas where, see if I can get this up for you well. The trunk disappears behind bunches of leaves. So that's one consideration, but also the trunk and the branches have to connect to each other. So I'll do a quick one and then you can kind of try one on your own. I'm going for my easy green really quick here. Get some green out. Maybe again, some blue over here so I could pull that in when I need it, and a little bit of brown down here. Okay, so I have some nice, clean my brush now. This is one area where I may take my spray bottle and just do a quick spritz enough to have a molted area, a variegated area of water on my paper, which you can't really see, but it will help create more natural breakups of some of these areas. So I want, again, loose touch on my brush, top areas of the trees. Try not to make it look like, here's my tree. You know, that's kind of boring. We want to make it interesting. Grab a touch more water, change the color slightly, leave white areas showing through. Your sky holes in a tree, there's always areas where the sky will peek through as it gets down lower because the light's coming from here above. So all of these leaves are blocking the light getting through some of these lower branches. So they'll become darker. So darker can be bluer or browner. It's kind of fun. And then I am going to get some brown. And I went right into my brown. I didn't clean my brush at this point because this brown for my trunk is going to be darker than the green I've just been using. And I'm going to add a little neutral tint or black to that. Maybe even a little dark blue, because we know trunks aren't really, really brown. And for the trunk, I'm going to come up with a thicker area. And we kind of, you know, when you practice your brush strokes, remember we have areas that are thin and thick and how we can make that work for us. So I'm going to start a little fat thing here and lift up so that less of the brush is touching. I should do this when the paint is dry above, but I'm going to go up into it. The trunk kind of goes through, branches will go off. So you see how I'm skipping areas for the branches to show through up at the top. And if all of this were drier, normally I'd wait before I did this, but just to get a feeling of that. And then you can clean the brush again because I'm going to pick up a little of the green and I'm going to, again, set it down on the ground, just a quick swash. Doesn't have to be perfect. That was kind of a dry brush effect so that it creates kind of a shadow down there. And I can add some roots heading out into the ground. So the tree doesn't just come down into the ground as like a straight stick. It comes down and then the roots spread out into the ground, because if you could do an X-ray under the ground, what's up below the ground is almost exactly what's above the ground with your root system. So playing with these things and finding photos that you have or just looking out the window, and you can practice different types of trees to get different effects. And now I'm looking for paper. I know I had more paper. Oh, there's some. I'm going to grab this one. How are those coming for you? I can't see yours, so I'm hoping things are coming along for you.
Wah, wah.
I think
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah.
Does it kind of make sense what I'm doing? I mean, and then it just takes some practice, right? You can come back in if it's a little dry now, and I can add different shadows or different aspects in there.
All right, I'm trying to find like a real, forest green.
Okay, how are you going to start? What colors are you starting with?
Well, I'm starting with ultramarine
Good.
and yellow.
Okay,
Some
and then
sort of
maybe some
reason-
burnt sienna, a little bit of burnt sienna to make it darker.
Okay, what I have is sort of an army green.
Okay, army green. So you're a little on the brownish side. So you either want to add a little blue and a little yellow, maybe. Careful with your yellow that it doesn't get contaminated with, you want to go into the yellow with a clean brush.
Yeah, I've discovered that many times in my brief painting.
It takes time. I mean, all of these things, you know, you have to remember, I've been painting, well, geez, long
It's
time.
okay.
Should I say? Let's see, I started watercolor. Well, I did some in college, so geez, in 20. I hate to say it. It's getting up there, 40 or 50 years. That's horrible.
Nobody likes to show off.
But I think what happens with a lot of people early on is they start very tight, and if you can stay loose and just relax it, it's more fun. Let's see, what else do we have?
My kingdom for sap green. Oh, well, let's see here.
Yeah, you could mix a little pile of it in your palette. If you're going to do that, start with like a lemon yellow probably, and add a little bit of your ultramarine blue at a time, and then you'd almost have a little well of pre-mixed sap green.
Ah, see, I've already hooked it up.
I wish I could see it. I've got this notification that's right. Oh, good. I was right in the middle of everything. Gay, you got, hold on.
What?
Let me, I'm going to spotlight Gay for a sec. Got something to show us?
Well, not really. I was just blowing on it to dry it.
Yeah, no, nice. Remember, these are excellent. These are excellent. The trees on your evergreen trees, remember
Yeah.
as the branches, the lower branches get heavy and start hanging
Yeah.
down toward the
Yep.
ground, not
Good.
up.
Yep.
Good.
Excellent.
Anyone else? Anyone else brave? Anyone? Hi, Elaine. You're on mute, sweetie. How are you doing? Okay, wait, I gotta unmute you somehow.
My
There.
dog heard me talk, so now he's gonna talk. Come here, buddy.
Oh, that's okay. It's a small group this morning. We don't mind. Unless it gets
No,
overwhelming.
I had to update my whole Zoom network, so that's why I was late. I apologize.
Oh, I didn't check that today. That's always a good thing to check. Especially when I'm
But
running
I'm
a
good.
group.
I don't know if I have video on, do I?
Yep, let me see.
You?
Hold on. Okay. Oh, nice. Yes. Good. Yep, you got 3 layers. And they're all kind of the same intensity.
Right.
You know, as you
Mm.
practice, you can make them lighter to go back further and things. But that's nice.
Yeah.
Good.
I
Anyone
have
else?
trouble getting one on top of the other, but
Yeah, if you start here, let me see if I can do something really quickly here with that. And think, you know, planning ahead. We talk about watercolors, really important to plan ahead. I could start with like a cerulean blue. That's the cooler blue. I mean, the whatever, the greener blue, and make it very light. So I'm going to add more water, and I can just put some trees in the background and see how light. Let me move this out of the way. It's kind of light. See, Gay, here's the branches going down as they get heavier down there.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's one tree. Then I can pick up more paint for Elaine here. I'm picking up, what am I doing? I've got sap green, ultramarine blue, burnt umber. Need more green. No, I wanted more blue, just to make it a stronger color now. And
you're
then I
using
can
a round brush right now.
I am using the round brush. Yep, this is my most versatile brush.
Okay.
And then because this one's so light, I can almost overlap this one very easily. Now that blue one is still wet and they're going to blend together at this point, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, that's what I have a hard time doing. Yeah.
yeah, and that has to do with 2 things. That has to do with value, which is basically how light they each are, how much water is in each one. I just did too much of that. And the contrast, but mostly the value. So the blue one has more water in it. Let me hold this up a little better here. Oh, there's no light up here. That's not good.
We see it.
So this one had more water in it, and this one had less. So that's why I made it up. And then if you wanted to put something even more in front, I would mix a paint that had even less water in it, so it's thicker. So I would say, going back to our scheme of how much paint with water, that in this case, the blue one is almost your tea, your green is kind of the milk consistency. Am I going right? And then this darker could be more like cream. So it's working with how light the paint is, and to make it lighter, you have to add more water. And that will help set it back. Blue also sets it back.
Blue and darker. Okay.
Blue and lighter sets it back.
Lighter. Okay.
Carolyn, what's the hand movement when you're making those trees?
I don't know. Okay. That's a great question. Let me just, I'll try to do it in an angle here. I don't know if I can make it more of an angle. So I do kind of the trunk, and I go up a little heavier here, and then I lift up. So I'm just on the tip of the brush, just whoop, up and light. And then this, I am thinking, okay, starting at the trunk, a branch grows out. Starting at the trunk, a branch grows out. And then I'm just kind of letting it, thinking branch out to the edge. Does that help? Is that making it clearer?
Yes.
Yeah,
that
it's
does
better.
help.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm always thinking a branch, and they're crookedy here and there and stuff like that. So that's how I do it. And then as it gets further down, of course, they get heavier. So to get it heavier, I'm pushing a little more down on the brush. So more of the hair is touching. This is exaggerating it, but more hair is touching. Where up here, I only have the very tip top of the brush is touching the paper.
And when you
Does that work? Can I
missed
zoom?
your page initially for the first tree, did you have the
I
paper?
missed your second word. What was?
Did you missed your page with water? It seems like I heard you say that when we started the
I did that on this one.
Yeah.
Because this one is more, but it was just misted, and it wasn't an even mist. It was the coarse mist. So it was irregular.
Okay, I think I missed it too
Yeah.
much.
You missed it too much. Yeah, you don't want to miss it too much. If you find you need to lighten some areas, I gave you the scrub brush last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here it is. Here's one. You can always come back with a damp scrub brush and pick out, just gently touch a couple areas. And what I'm doing is I'm touching the paper. Let's see if you can see it. I gotta make sure you can see it. And kind of just scrubbing it around a little bit in an irregular pattern. Then I can blot it and see how that will lighten some of those areas there. So you can do that. Is my camera too far away from this? I'm trying to include everything here, the palette and the picture and stuff. Would you like it to be closer to the paper?
I
Or is
think,
this okay?
yeah. You bring it
Okay.
closer occasionally, that helps too. But I think it's
Okay.
nice to have the perspective from when you're doing it.
Good. This is more of an oak tree. What did we have here before? This is more of a big oak tree or something. This one is more kind of maple, right? So you see more of the trunks, and it's very much, so they all have different shapes. And I'm going to send you a sheet that has different types of trees on it and their shapes. So your conifers, obviously cone shape, they're kind of triangles. Maple and things like that. So study your tree and kind of know what tree you're drawing when you go into it. Like if down here, if you had a magnolia tree, it would be, even more full and more strong. I don't think we have to try that one. Let me, excuse me, show you the approach on this. This would be kind of fun to do. So are you comfortable? You're feeling like your brush strokes are coming back? It's always good to practice, the tip of the hair down, practice your brush strokes, get really comfortable with your brush. I'm not going to use that again. Do have my smaller flat brush here. I got this at the dollar store, and they come in a little set, and they're actually, the bristles are white, but they're quite soft. And this is great for just making large areas of washes very quickly if you need to. The fancy watercolor brush for that is a Hake brush, Hake. That's this. This was my mother's, and you can see it has a lot of loving use. But this is just as great, you know. These are a lot more expensive than something like that, but if you're just wetting your paper, what does it really matter? All right, I am trying to block things here. Let me do a quick little sketch for you on this. I'm going to use a pen. No, I'm going to use this graphite pencil. So I have a rectangle here. Can you see that? Pretty light. So say this is going to be my picture, and I want to do a quick study. So I know that I want basically kind of this area. And remember, try to make it irregular shapes. It's going to be more interesting. Is going to be that light area of the snow sitting on top of the trees. And maybe a quick, see, even this, it's not just a line across. I make an irregular line. You can't really see. There you go. That shows pretty well, yes?
Mhm.
So it's not just a line. And I'm going to leave out the water for right now. I just want to work on this type of tree. And then there's some other trees in behind here. So if you want to sketch out a little something like that, you can do that to know where you're going. Come on, camera, do the job. This is also a loose enough painting that you could not do this, but which would be something I would do. But it's good to kind of lay it out, get an idea where you're going. I'll hold that for a moment. Then there's also, as you're sketching that out, you know, sorts of things like composition. Here, I'll add, you know, there'll be some more branches down here, maybe a distant something over here, more distant trees there. We don't talk much here about composition. We're just enjoying the painting and keeping it loose and having fun. But there's always the rule of thirds, different compositions like S compositions or L or H, and kind of the cross shape. This one, the I is going to be kind of an S through here, or a Z. It will kind of come around this way down here. So that's that composition. We okay with that?
Yep.
So I'm now going to put this onto my, you know, and then I can shade it. So I know that, and for my sketch, don't do this on your watercolor paper. This is my planning sketch. I want to come down further if I can. Nope, about as far as I can come. She's gone about as far as she can go. Who got that one? Anybody get that one?
Where's that from? That's from some show.
Oklahoma.
Okay.
Everything's up to date in Kansas City. Yeah.
I'm just a girl who can't say.
Can't say no. I love that one too. So I am just planning out. I want to keep this area light. This is going to be my mid-dark area. And then I'd have, you know, a foggy area up here and maybe mid-tone here. So I am going to have the darker area, a mid-tone area here, and this background piece, and then my light areas where the trees are. So that's kind of what I have planned out. Now I'm trying to keep everything in so you can see. And I'm just going to use this piece of paper here. So here again, my trees. You have this on your watercolor paper already. That's good. I want to make this a little more irregular, more interesting. Background trees. We'll have to ignore this writing down here. I want my trunks a little more over this way because I think it was interesting. This is a dark area because it's under the tree casting a shadow. So that's, I've already changed what I'm going to do there. These trees are in the distance over here. Okay, so I have a very rough sketch that I can now work on. I think for this, I'm going to stay with my round brush because it's a smaller piece. It's not very big. We want to bring this down. They used a lot of blue. I think a blue's good to start for the sky in the background. But I want to keep this area very light. So how am I going to do that? One way is to take my hand and use it as a mask over the paper. So I'm taking kind of a rough fist and I'm blocking in this area that I want to stay light here. I check my spray to the side and I kind of spray around it, not too, if you get really close, you're going to get a heavier spray. If you back off, it's going to be more broken up spray. So I have that, and then I'm going to do a little bit on the underside too, like where it's going to be over here. And see how I keep protecting, sorry about the side, but I keep protecting that light area there. I want that to stay light. So I have a good amount of, not a lot, but molted spray around that central tree-ish area.
Okay,
But-
keep tipping that because I can't see the.
I know it's tricky here, but if you have yours,
Okay,
and you
so
can
all the way
see where
around that tree area.
pretty much around this. So this in the middle is dry. This is going to be dry. I've got spray all over my iPad now and everything. This is just so much fun.
Are we to be painting along with you?
It's up to you. If I show you, then you can practice it on your own. So I'll do something quickly. Oh, I do not want that blue. That's a phthalo blue. That is way too bright for what I want. So here's a blue. This is my ultramarine blue, but it's too blue. So I don't really want it to get green. I'd like to maybe soften it so the orange areas are what's good for that, right? Because orange is opposite it on the color wheel. But I don't want bright orange either, so I'm using an earth tone orange. So maybe your burnt sienna or something. And look at this nice gray that I've created. And I can now take this and I'm going to turn my brush upside down here because I want to see what the tip is doing as it comes around that tree. Like this. But then I also need to come up into the rest of the sky so I don't get a sharp line at the edge of that. So I am defining kind of the skyline right now. And if I want to make it a little more interesting, I'm cleaning my brush. I'm going to pick up a hint of some sort of pinkish, and maybe just brush that through there to add a little color. I didn't take my paper down, as I told you. I should have done that. And while I'm doing this, I can also go in and add some shadows under the trees because I'm working with that. So these are my mid-tone areas right now that I'm working on. I can do this again under the tree here and into that background there. And I'm just skimming. Remember we talked about just almost dry brush across part of this. So it creates, here, I'll do it here too. It creates a molted effect on the paper. The brush is just touching the tips of those little bumps on the paper and creating a nice, you know how snow has those little indents and things going on. So while that's moving along, I'm also going to add in my distant trees. Again, I'm starting with my ultramarine blue, maybe a little burnt umber to set it back and neutralize it somewhat. It was a little too much. Add just a hint of green. And I can now, as I'm mixing here, remember how I turn my brush so it's evenly loaded? I'm rolling, I'm slowly rolling the brush around in my hand. You can see the letters moving there as I mix it as well. And then I'm going to add in some darker trees in the background. I like that it's bleeding up there because this is a misty day, so I don't have to control a sharp edge there. Very loose. Let the paint do a lot of the work for you. You don't have to control it totally. I think I'm going to add a little more dark ultramarine under these trees here. So I have already quite a definition of what's going on with these trees, right? But of course, these aren't going to be all white. I would probably, if I could, have the time to let this dry, as I don't really have time, because I want you guys to paint more, is I'm going to now wet, not all the way to the edge, but the underside of these trees, kind of irregularly. So it's kind of at the shadow area, so the bottom sides of the trees is just kind of wet, and maybe dance it up a little bit into the light area. And I want to pop this forward a little bit more, so I am going to use a purplish red, clean my brush, and maybe a soft ultramarine blue, so it's more red than blue. And again, dance, I'm thinking shadows on these trees that are here in the front. And just really irregular, and let it dance around, make it kind of interesting. So see how simply, it's not as developed as this, but you're getting the basic idea. I mean, this took a lot longer. This one's much quicker. But this could be like the first layer through. It's kind of nice. And then when it's dry, which it is not right now, you can get some dark trunky color, not brown, more gray than brown. So I am mixing my burnt umber with some ultramarine blue, getting kind of a gray, and that's not dark. Must have too much water in my brush. And then I would wait for this again to dry, but just draw my trunk. So I want to think, if I'm not comfortable making this stroke here, I come over to my scrap paper, think the base of the trunk in the snow, and pull it up. So, you can practice over here if you want before, and then when you feel comfortable with it, you can come over here and bring it up. I don't want those the same. I want them each a little different. I'll add another little trunk over here. Peeking through lighter.
I don't know how you get that big round brush to make such small lines. I have trouble with that.
I go way, way up on the tip. I
Yeah.
barely touch the paper with the tip of that brush.
Yeah, and then
And
I feel
that's
like I lose control, but you've got to steady your hand, I think.
If you're not, do the brace with your other hand.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So you're crisscrossing. This is going to strengthen and help hold this one steady.
Okay.
You could even lie that first one, the left, or your left or right hand, doesn't matter. Lie your opposite hand on the paper on the table, and then do this, and that steadies our hands quite a bit. And I might add some. So I hear brushes and water going, so I know you're painting. It's kind of nice. And if you're not sure, you can take a very quite dry brush. I mean, it's not totally dry, it is damp, it has water in it. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of this scarlet here. Just the tip of my brush. Check it over here. That looks pretty good. Maybe even this one a little brighter. Okay. I have a clump on the tip of my brush. I'm going to put a little, let's see, where will he sit? I'm going to put a little cardinal. A little cardinal in my tree right there. A little cardinal. It's not a cardinal. Do you see what it is? It's an irregular V. So it's like, I'm going to exaggerate the size here, but it's kind of a V like this, and then a kind of a V down this way. So it looks like a V, but it's kind of a cardinal sitting in it. Because the viewer will finish that. Maybe it has some berries in the tree. No, I shouldn't have done this. I could tell that right off. They take it if you can catch it soon enough. Nope, didn't catch it soon enough. So should I fiddle with that? Probably not. But I can take my scrubby brush, gently scrub. And we talked about that. If you're not on a rag paper, the paper's not going to take as much abuse as a rag paper, but soften that a little bit.
And when we're done, you're going to send us that original picture and the one you did so we can kind of remember and play with it at home.
Oh, you just want everything now. I see how.
I do, because I won't remember how to do it, but I want to practice. I'm not actually
Yes.
painting yet.
Oh, okay. No, thank you for that reminder. I will do that. And I have notes here somewhere. When we started. Yeah, the reference will come. I got all of these on one PDF. Whoops, the reference trees. So that's easy, and it's not a high resolution, but it's enough reference and samples. You can see with this one, it's the same kind of like what we're doing with the trees, but lighter colors in the background. So there's more water back there. Then you add more paint as you come forward. Just let this kind of all bleed down. Wait for it to get to maybe the sheen or matte stage, somewhere like near the matte stage. Then you can add in these darker trees. And again, you're going to need more paint. So already we can see how wet is the paper. You know, is it sheen, matte, or dry? And how thick is the paint? Is it tea, milk, or cream? So keep those aspects in mind to really help your painting move along. Nobody ever told me that. Because of teaching, I try to make it easier and clearer for students. And I think I'm moving along and getting some good ideas. All right, we are at about halfway through. My little iPad looks, he's at 41%.
So can you go back to
Yes.
the trees and talk a little bit about the water up front? You just kind of what you had painted and bring back yours that you had just painted. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't
I'm
really understand what to do with that, how to get that
I'm
water.
sorry about this. Okay.
Or we can move on and not worry about it.
No, that's good. This is a good time for questions.
Yeah.
This one or?
Yeah, that one right there. Yeah, you just kind of gave it a little bit of the same color that you used on the, yeah, okay, I see. Thank you.
Yeah, at this point, when you're just starting out, try not to get too complex, too complicated. As you can see, there's branches in here and stuff that you can add later on when it's dry. Try to get some of them disappear. There's some grass added in there if you want to. But starting out simply with the general idea of it, like you can see here, this edge is kind of disappeared. I'm going to find that color. I think I mixed it down here. And I could come back in and I'm just touching the brush like this to the paper. And because it's still a little bit damp, it's going to, blossom out a little bit. But that there, and I'm just going to bleed in that bottom edge just by touching. See, it kind of defines that a little more, adds a little more dark. I can do the same over here.
Okay, I just had this big white spot and I wasn't sure what to do with it.
The what?
I just had a big white
This-
spot where the water was, and I'm like, well, I don't really know what to do with that. So you just kind of pulled some of that similar color down, but lighter.
Yes, yeah. I don't know where yours is, but yes, hopefully. Good. Any other questions on that? And it always looks different on a Zoom than it does in person. Interesting. You want to live a couple more minutes painting? Grab my water wherever I put it. It's not even snowing here now, and there's no snow on the ground at all. They said there's going to be maybe later today, but another possible 3 to 6 inches. Have you
Whoa.
heard that?
Really?
Yes.
It's supposed to continue through what, late tomorrow,
Oh, wow.
ever happens.
Well, I told Pam, I'm like, look, Pam, I'm from Maine. I can drive this stuff. But I didn't want people feeling uncomfortable out on the roads, and it's better to be safe. It's much better.
And
I
it's
didn't
kind
want-
of nice to get a little taste of doing it on Zoom.
Yeah, yeah. When COVID first hit, because I had some experience with IT and stuff, Pam contacted me, and some of our first, I think it was a watercolor course in Maine, but we had to decide people couldn't get supplies. So we had to think, what would they have at home that they can do painting with? And it was pretty fascinating. So a lot of people had Crayola kids paint sets, or just brushes around the house. And I would take like one of those cheap paint brushes that you get at a hardware store, and we did fur on animals. Just took the brush and went chook 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 and made fur. And it's surprising how some of the paintings came out great. So we've come a long way now that we can go. We're swingers now, right? We can swing in virtual or in live. Love it. You still looking? You let me know when you kind of.
Good, I'm good.
No, everybody good? Anybody still working?
Oh, well,
Gonna, yeah, we're always still working, right?
never quite right.
But relaxing, and that's what kids do. I mean, mine's not great either. It's just kind of quick little sketch, fun little sketch. What else did I have next? Oh yeah. I think for the next one, I'm going to plan it a little more. We'll do a little landscape. I mean, you did kind of a landscape. I mean, and give yourself credit for some of you have been painting before, but some of you, this is brand new, and you are 5 hours into painting. I mean, 5 hours is not a long time. Anyone have something they want to show? Are they too wet? Go painting away. Okay. I'm going to go to my other. Oops. This is going to be our easiest one to work with. I'm trying to make a nice little design here. Nope, this is not a good design because my horizon is right in the middle of the painting. That is not interesting. I think I could come over here this way. That might be better. This is kind of what along the lines of very similar to what we just did. Who knows? We might get 2 more paintings in. So I am going to grab a pad. I was going to show about wetting the paper. It's best if you can. I'm watching my iPad charge. If you can take the paper off the pad, you wet the back, you wet the front. I'll show that again next week when we're back live. I need to write this down. For wet back. What was the other thing I said we were going to? Oh, the salt and special techniques.
So why on this one are you wetting the front and the back, but on the last one we didn't?
Because it was just kind of a practice sketch last time.
That's when you're doing something, that's what you generally want to do.
A more serious. I hate saying serious, but a more developed paint. This is a serious painting. But I'm not going to because this is on a pad. Oh, it's not on a pad. Look at this. It's actually not on a pad. So I can show you here, which might work well. I need tape. So when I am doing this size, quarter sheet, half sheet, things like that, I will take a sponge, and you can use a cellulose sponge or a natural sponge, doesn't matter. And when I dampen the back side, I don't go all the way out to the edge of the paper. I leave about a half an inch. Because if I wet the back side all the way out to the edge, when I turn it over and flatten it down, it's apt to push some of that water out, and then my tape won't stick. So that's the reason why I don't go all the way to the edge. But I dampen it rather quickly. It's not super wet. It's at about somewhere between matte and sheen. Just dampen that paper evenly. Turn it over. Paper towel, make sure my board is dry, and then tape it down. We talked about folding back the tape. How I fold back the tape, like whenever I set it down, I do a little fold. Okay.
Yes.
So I try to tape this down quickly because it is going to start curling a bit because the back side is damp. The 2 reasons we do it is so that the paper is a little more consistently damp throughout and will accept the paint a little better. Fold that over at the very end so that tab is ready for next time. And it will also shrink evenly because this is cotton and it will shrink. So I have it taped down all around the edges pretty firmly. Now I can again take my sponge, or you could spray if you want, either way, or with a wide brush. You can do that way if you want, and just kind of evenly dampen it. You don't want it too wet because we want to come in and dry. This got pretty wet. It also removes the size. If there's any sizing on the surface of your paper, it will help remove that. Mine got pretty wet, so I'm just going to take a clean paper towel and lightly brush across that. So it brings it down to more of a matte stage. And I don't know if you can see, but yeah, you can see it. See, there's a bubble already in mine. Sometimes people will try to lift it and then flatten that back out. I'll just show you. Sometimes you can do that, but I don't tend to. It tends to flatten itself out as it dries. But you'll just have to watch what the bubble does. What I mean by that is now created a hill on, with your paper, and the paint's going to react to that. It's going to flow down over the hill. And while I'm waiting for that to maybe dry a little bit more, it's a good time to do a sketch. So I'm looking at my photograph. It's okay. It's not great. What do I want to emphasize? I kind of like these two trees here. Maybe I want it more that way. Might even do that. So I'm thinking, this is just my sketch. This is a fun little sketch. My horizon is about 1/3 of the way up. Again, we're talking composition. The rule of thirds, very quickly, is dividing your paper into thirds. This way. And the center of interest should be at the intersection of two of those thirds. Is that too bright again? You can't see that, can you? Is this too light to see?
No, I can see
Uh,
it.
You can
The
see it okay?
Mhm.
I'm going to go heavier for this, just so rule of thirds, you know. So I think this third and this third, this is where I want kind of the general area of focus. So my horizon, I'm going to have about 1/3 of the way up on the paper. Not going to worry about this third up here. I want to put these trees somewhere near that, but notice they don't go all the way down to down here. They stop just below the horizon. So here's my horizon, and they're stopping just below that. So I'll just sketch these in. I want to move this one over a little more, set it back a little further. I might have them go all the way up. And I like these because they're pine trees, so they're just going to be my wonderful little, the marks that we've been practicing with pine trees. This background, look at all the sky holes through here. So we don't want fence posts back there, okay? We don't want it to be fence posts. We want these to be irregular, have personality. Some of them are grouping together. Some of them are further apart, just an idea. We can also, as we did with the white tree, kind of add a general idea where we're going to put, that's the bottom edge of the trees here. See how that's kind of open there? And I'm going to bring these up higher over here, then come down in here. Then this right here is kind of dull. So I'm going to make these trees bigger just because it's going to add more interest by making those trees a little bigger. And they're trees, they're not somebody's face, so I can do that.
Hmm.
Right? And then if we get bold and we get dry enough before we finish this, we can add a little man in here. He's walking. And he's not a man. Okay, I've got a little kind of almost a circle up here above his shoulders. The shoulders are kind of slanted. I have a little triangle line there, a little shorter triangle line there, little line. Kind of a rectangle here for his shirt. He's got some shorts on. One leg's kind of going this way, one kind's that way. And he's got a rake or something. But that's it. We don't have to worry about making it a person. We just think about what are the shapes: rectangle, square, circle, line, boom. Indicate what it is, and as we put it together, the viewer's eye will finish it for us and go like, oh, there's a guy walking through the woods. This is one thing I can't do on Zoom is like I can't focus in on Zoom. I can't zoom on Zoom. In some places I can, so there must be a setting that I don't have correct. Let me hold this up, see if it's a little clearer. Oh, let me get the arrow out of the way. That's distracting. Don't worry about the man right now. This is just your sketch, planning ahead, thinking about it. And you can see how loose these areas are. Those background trees are quite loose. You don't really need to draw them in. The same with the tall trees. Just have an idea where they are. You don't have to draw them. Because we're working with this sketch, I'm going to do some shading now. I want him pretty dark. I want the trunks of these trees quite dark. I want this background middle toned. And see how loose I'm doing that? It's just a real suggestion of it. I'm not trying to define it a lot. And then it's a foggy day, but I'm going to pretend there's a little bit more of light. I'm going to pretend the sun's kind of over this way and it's shining down this way. So that means there'll be shadows kind of heading this way a little bit. I can take a photograph, and by making it into a sketch, I can change the elements enough to make it my own. I could change the values. I can change the direction of the light if I know that if the sun's there and it hits this tree trunk, then the shadow's going to go in that opposite direction. Same with the man. I can also create any colors I want now, because this is just black and white. I can make this all grays and purples, for a misty day. I could make these trees like bright orange and red and these dark green as if it's an autumn day on a bright sunny day with blue sky behind it. You have options. You can create more things. And sometimes it's fun to take a simple sketch like this, maybe do 4 of these on a piece of paper and create very different atmospheres for each of them. It's a great little exercise to do. How are we doing there? So I don't really need the photo anymore, do I? But you guys want to see this, so I'm going to pull this down. I'm going to do a light sketch on here. Here's my third. The horizon. The trees are somewhat here. And the man will be right about here. And then those trees will get larger here. So I'm just kind of figuring out where to go. My paper is not dry, but it's not damp either. It is definitely at a matte stage. I'm going to pick up my round brush. And I'm going to think of color. What kind of day do we want this to be? Do you want it a misty day like today, or do you want more sunny day? Anybody?
Misty.
Okay, we're going with misty. So that's good because we already kind of have some misty colors mixed on our palette. I'm going to use my flat brush. I'm going with the sky, so I'm going to add a little purple in it just because it's fun. Thinking where that's going to go. I am going to do the soft spray again up in the top part. I don't want to do too much down below because I want, actually it's not going to matter because those trunks are going to be dark. All right, I'm just going to spray across. Check it in your light, see if it's molted, spread out a bit. All right. So the background, the sky is going to be a light misty color, right? So we're mixing it very much tea quality, very thin paint, but we want to have stuff that we can vary it. So it's not just a flat color. And we want our marks. So I like a swoosh. Oftentimes I'll just do a swoosh like this. See how, and then I go back and I get a little more paint because you're going to run out of paint. I've added a hint more of the magenta to this. Want a little more water, throw it across. Squint down. I can also do a little more spray if I want. I kind of like that. You can't see in the light. I see I have a light here, so that's hard for you to see. I can't pick it up anymore because it's taped to the table. Maybe a little more depth up in this corner. I like to vignette my paintings. So vignetting means that the edges and the corners always kind of go out of focus and are a little softer in color, not so much contrast, because that's how we see things. If you look at something straight ahead and try to see what's going on around, you'll notice in your periphery vision that everything is out of focus. Photographs don't do that. We take a photo with our camera or whatever, everything's in focus, everything's the same strength, but that's not how we see as humans. So when I'm doing a painting, I like to make a little bit of a vignette and bring the focus down into the central part. You know what I forgot? I need some sky behind those middle trees, don't I? So I am going to, I think I'm going to place it in like this. Little areas of light in between. I might have some trees with a white trunk. Who knows? I want these to be taller too. That's kind of a boring line across. This photo is actually a golf course in Maine. But I like it because it has the different layers of trees. Some are close, some are further away. Now I've got a funny line there. See how this line, that's not very much of it, those straight lines, tree lines. So I'll pick up the same color and I'll just kind of make it a little more irregular with the tip of my brush, while this area is still damp and it will blend into that a little better, anywhere where it's really a straight line. A little darker over here. Okay, how are we doing? Misty day. Next, we want to do the next layer. So we have the most distant layer, which is the sky in behind. Our next layer, if you think about putting them like the picture plane, here's the background, here's the next layer, then there's what's in the foreground, and then there's what's up close. So we're thinking of that. If you ever studied the original Disney illustrations, what they did is they would paint a background, and then on celluloids, which is just a plastic sheet kind of thing, they would paint the different layers. So as the camera panned across it, it would look like one layer was passing in front of the other. But thinking of the picture plane in layers like that is a very helpful thing to do. So now I need to decide on a color for those distant trees. Are we still going misty? Like, look outside today. I'm looking outside. I could use those colors exactly. It's grayish with a hint of purple and some sort of, here, Dawn, you're going to love this, forest green, but a very, very light forest green.
Finally.
Yay. So I'm going to mix some of those colors on my palette ahead of time. Okay, start with my ultra blue. I shouldn't have started with ultra blue because I'm going to add a yellow into it. I'm going to try to mix. I'm going to try to stay away from the sap green. Yeah, I'm going to use the cad yellow family here. Get a bunch of that, put it on my palette, ready to use. Don't want that. Paints are drying out here. Get some blue down there. Good amount. And some burnt sienna, of course. Clean my brush, and I'm going to start with the yellow that's here. Notice I'm in my green area. I don't care because I'm actually going to be making a green. So I'm going to pull a little bit of this together. See, I start with a yellow, and then I go up into that blue and pull a bit down, because the blue is going to be a lot stronger than that yellow. And see if I can get a dull green, which is kind of what I'm looking for. If I wanted a bright green, this yellow that I use, the cad yellow, is an opaque yellow. So I'm going to get more of a grayed mix with the transparent ultramarine blue. If I wanted a bright transparent green, I would mix that transparent ultramarine blue with a transparent yellow, like my lemon yellow. I've tilted my camera again, like my lemon yellow. But here I want it a little more dull. Bring in a little of that brown. It's kind of dull, but it's going to need to be more blue. But I don't want to mix everything exactly the same. My green here is a little more yellow, my green here is a little more blue, and my green here is a little more brown. So as I'm working in these trees, I can variegate the color, which will make it more interesting. I also want the tree tops to be soft. So I am going to, again, mist because mine dried out pretty much. Mist the top a little bit and just a little bit at the bottom. If I look at this sideways in the light, it's irregular. Now I want this fairly thin, right? Because we're in the background. That is too dark, I think. Yeah, more blue. Check it over here because I have a free spot. And I'm just going to dance my brush through that. It's pretty wet in spots. I want more blue. But because I've sprayed, some of these are going to follow those drops of drops
Oh,
of
okay.
water. I have no idea what I keep.
Wow.
Drops of water up into that sky area.
But that whole area, oh, is that whole tree area wet now or not?
It's damp. It's mottled wet.
Mottled.
It's I sprayed it, so it's some of it's wet and some of it's dry. That's why I'm getting some of these white spots,
Yeah,
which
okay.
shine through and kind of look like sky holes. And I want to go down. Remember this purple area down here is kind of a sky hole situation. So we don't want to go too far into that. That's where on the picture, the sky was shining through the tree trunks. Now we can make it a little darker. We've got kind of the top side going up here. Can vary it a little bit more, add a little more blue or something. Just have fun with it, dance it around. And then get some darker areas. And I'm going to turn my brush this way because I like to see what the front tip of the brush is doing and where it's going. If I put it like this, my hand's going to be covering it. So this way I can kind of see what's going on there. And let it blend together here and there. And keeping in mind, this is going to dry about a third lighter than what it is right now. Kind of lean back, step back. You can't see mine. Where's that which light is shining on it? Is that one? Yeah. That one. See, that light is pretty bright. So I think I need some more darks over here. And I'm not really thinking trees, right? I'm letting the brush strokes and the paint do the work for me. I wanted some of these to be a little higher. I'm going up on the tip of my brush just to get some broken tree branches up in here. And we're about mid-heavy in our paint right now. We decided was, it's beyond tea. The tea was the sky. So this is like milk to cream, or just milk, not too thick. And while I'm here, because I know my next two layers are going to be even darker. So we have the lighter layer, the middle layer. This looks kind of boring. And I want some of the grass to be kind of this same, kind of reflective of what's happening. I'm going to add a little more yellow into it. And I'm going to do dry brush here. So dry brush means there's paint in the brush, but the paper is dry. And I'm gonna, again, lay the brush almost flat on the paper and drag it across, remembering that even though it's diffused light, it's kind of coming from this direction. So just going to kind of drag it across there. Define a couple edges of the grass. I've put the paint, the brush again, so it's pulling out some areas. I don't know what this is. It's a mistake, so it's a bush now. Really? Yeah. Oh yeah, I wanted that bush to be there all along. That was my plan. This is early spring, so there's some bits of snow still on the ground here. That's what the white is. You can interpret it as you go along, I'll add some kind of bluish shadows in there. I was in near Winston-Salem this weekend, and I went to see the Andrew Wyeth show there at the Ronalda, is that how you pronounce it? Museum, the J.R. Reynolds Ronalda Museum. It was really great show. Okay. I want this to be a little more blended, so I'm just taking clear, fresh water. Just in my painting. Your painting probably look different, so just want to soften this a little. How are we doing?
Good.
Good, good. Pull up that bush a little bit more. Okay. Now I really need to let this dry, because to put in a nice dark line for the tree trunks, the man, he needs to be dry around him to make him work. So I'm thinking, what can I do now? I can take a piece of paper and fan it a little bit. I could put in the tree trunks for those distant trees, because that purplish gray area is quite dry. So that's not going to affect that too much. And we practiced tree trunks already today, so hopefully our brushers are ready for that. I'm going to take some burnt umber, black or neutral tint, and blue, because these are distant ones. And I don't want these tree trunks in the distance to be as dark as those two that are going to be up in the foreground. But they need to be darker than that. That is just too light. There we go, a little more. So I'm going to make this about, what do we got? Milk, cream, and yogurt. It's going to be milk quality. Load the brush. That looks rather wet. I have a good amount of paint now in the tip of my brush. You get this video after, so you can listen to it again if you want. But it's still, I know it's pretty wet because I can tell the way it's acting on my palette. I am going to touch the belly of the brush, that little fat part of the brush, just that, to my sponge like this, or I can show you with a paper towel. The edge of a paper towel, and touch it right there. And you can see it absorbs a good amount of the water without taking away a lot of that paint. Now I should be able to come up with some nice tree trunks here in the distance. Vary them. Some are thicker, some are thinner. I always start in the direction they're growing. So from the base up. You can touch it down here where the roots are going into the ground. Move it around the painting. Then we can change the color of some of the other tree trunks. We'll make it a little more blue. Tip, tip, tip of the brush. How few hairs can you actually touch to the paper to make this work? Here I want them a little closer, a little thicker. So all we've done is some fine brush marks and created trees.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you did the sky behind those tree trunks, you actually left white areas, but did you really have to? Because the tree trunks are going to be much darker than that background color.
Right, you don't have to.
Okay.
In a couple spots I still have them, and I'm thinking maybe there's a birch tree back there.
Yeah, okay.
But if you don't have it, don't worry about it. You know, I mean, that's the magic. It just kind of happy happenstances that come along and say like, yeah, this works. I'm gonna make this one into a larger tree. Need a couple larger trees here and there. A little thicker on the trunk. Be over here. I'm also seeing that I think it's good. Maybe a couple more shadows here and there. Still rather damp. My painting over here, so I can add a couple more darker shadows in this areas of the tree. This areas, I tell you what, you get talking straight for 2 hours and it comes out really fascinating. How are we all doing on that? Good? Where did my fan good? Yeah. Some people use hair dryers. Hair dryers can work. You just be careful not to push the paint around too much. Remember when we were kids in school and the teacher you put paint on a paper and she'd give you a straw and you'd blow it around and make branches by blowing it? The hair dryer can kind of do that. Maybe while we're waiting, I'm waiting for this section to dry where I want to put those trees and the walker. I'm going to pick up some of this darker paint about what I did for the trunks. And I want to just indicate a few more like shadows under them here and there. So I'm just taking some of that paint and just touching the base of the tree trunk and whoops, that one didn't work out. Kind of coming off from the direction of where the light's coming. It's the magic of watercolors. You don't have to do a lot for the paint when you're working with the paint and letting it do stuff for it to really have fun. And we've done big washes, right? We've done some spritzing. We've done some line. We've been practicing our brush strokes with our brush, keeping up on the tip of the brush or pressing down for whatever type of brush stroke you want. Not choking the brush so that you're back a little bit and it's relaxed in your hand. How are you all doing? I'm about ready to throw in those big old trees, I hope. I hope. So I'm going to start mixing the color for that, the time we have. Yep. So again, back to my most used color, that ultramarine blue. Getting a good amount of it out here because I want it fairly thick. I want this to be between milk and yogurt thickness. Sometimes I'll do this. Here's a little trick too. I have a lot of color in my brush and I don't want to just wash it off. So I'll hold it and very gently use the bevel on this other brush to just kind of scrape out some of the paint onto my palette.
Speaking my language.
Be very gentle with it though, because you don't want to hurt the brush. Get some brown out here. And some neutral tint. I kind of have my tree trunk colors here. But I could mix these all together and I would have one color for those big tree trunks. I don't want just one color. I want to keep it interesting because as a tree trunk goes up, if you look at it outside, some of it's darker, like down near the bottom, it might be darker because it's got more shadows. As it goes up the trunk, maybe some light is filtering through in the middle part, so it's a little lighter, a little bluer or something. So don't want it to be just one color all the way. Now I have to think because I didn't draw out these tree trunks. So now I'm going to create a very interesting line of this tree going up here and the other tree going there. I'm going to try to create a very interesting line. So I'm thinking tree trunk. So I'm going to put some roots in. You see it okay? Yeah. And then it's going to come up. It's a tall pine. It's going to get thinner as it gets higher. So I've got to lift the brush to go up to the tip. I've got a clunk here, so that's going to be a branch heading out that way. And I keep losing my paper towel. It's almost pretty much the same all the way, and I just mentioned not doing that. So I'm going to blot it just once or twice to add a little variety in there. And I'm going to put the other buddy tree beside it. The friends here. He's going to lean in a little bit. Go ahead and let it be a little bit old man-y. Let it get crookedy. Blot here and there. And these are my pine trees. So I'm going to get that blue. Kind of make it somewhat greenish and some burnt sienna. And a little more green in there. This is darker, just like those tree trunks. They're a bit darker. So now we do our fir tree brush strokes. I'm trying to keep my hand out of the way. These guys are the big ones. They've seen a lot of wind and storms way up there. So they can be kind of sparse in areas. I want to change that color up a little bit as I come down. Skinny branches, fat branches. And because it's a golf course, they don't want the branches to come down close to your head. So I'm going to have to keep those branches, they're going to stop fairly high up. Not great, not bad, kind of fun. I need to add a little shadow, but a light shadow because it's a misty day. And I don't have anything over here. I'm going to blot that a little bit. Now I'm going to try to put the man in. I'm going to use mostly my neutral tint here. And because you want him fairly dark, maybe a little brown. He's a brunette. And I'm going to pull up the photo again. I don't want to make him, I don't want to get uptight about him. He's walking along. Remember, we talked about the level of the trees is kind of at his head height. Might put him right here. He's got kind of a hood on. It's kind of an oval shape, kind of round, ovalish there. Then it comes down for shoulders. One arm kind of hangs down. Does not have to be perfect. It just has to suggest this might be a person walking. Nice rectangle for the torso. Kind of a square. He's got shorts on. Can pull this leg forward a little bit so there's a little angle there to pull that leg forward. Want this arm a little thicker. And he's got shorts, so I'm going to get a reddish color for his skin and his legs. It's still got too much dark in it. Let's see, down to the knee, leg out, other leg crossing across. That did not come out very well, but who's really going to notice except you guys, because I just said it's not good. Kind of a foot hanging out there. This arm needs to come down. The hand always comes down about mid-thigh. I don't like his legs. I'm going to see if I can lift his legs. This is a trick here, right off. I dampened it as quickly as I could and blotted. The green behind was fairly dry in the grass, so I don't worry too much about that. Now I have to wait for that to dry a bit. I can give him warmth in his face. Do I have to worry about a face? No, not really. Just suggest it. Hip to the knee, knee to the calf, down to the foot, other leg kind of down. Yeah, a little better. And then I'm going to give him a stick to carry. I don't know why. Oh, it's got a broom now. There. Vary his body a little bit too. He's very evenly black. I don't want him just black. Like we made parts of the tree trunks disappear. We want to do that kind of with his body too. I do not know what this stick is that he's carrying. Make it a rake, I guess. A very long rake. And you need to sit him down on the ground with a shadow. Not too dark. Let it blend in. Not a masterpiece, but it can give you an idea of how to work layers, focusing on the wetness of the paper. How wet is the paper? Whether it's, you know, sheen, matte, or dry. How thick is your paint? Milk. Wait, no, we said tea, milk, cream, yogurt. I don't think we really used any yogurt here. We got as thick as about cream. And when it's dry, you can come in with more details. You could set something over here. Maybe he needs a bucket. I don't want it to be too bright because I don't want it to distract from the rest of the painting. No, he doesn't have a bucket. He's got a rake. Why would he have a bucket? What would he have? I don't know. I'm going to put a crate over here. He's just got a crate to put like a wicker basket to put some leaves in. I don't know why I put leaves in. Remember when we were young, we used to be able to burn leaves? We'd rake the yards and burn the leaves. Not
That was
anymore.
the best smell in the entire world.
Oh, I loved it. It was great, especially in like the fall, of course, because I was a Girl Scout, so Girl Scout camp, you know, and when it started on those cool, damp afternoons in August, and then you'd light a fire, just delicious. That looks horrible. That is nothing. Can I remove it if I want to? Possibly. Right? If you do it quickly, see how easily that lifted. Partially because we're working on rag paper. Not my best masterpiece, but I had kind of fun dealing with the different aspects we're working with. Yes.
How'd you make the black?
I used neutral tint or black if you have it, and a little bit of either burnt umber or ultramarine blue. My two go-to colors. So it's not just black. It looks black on yours, but it's not black. Let me see if I can bring this down. See, he's got some variegation to him.
I absolutely can't come up with anything
You
He's
know what?
not perfect.
I gave up on the guy and left him out because
dark enough
Okay.
to do the black.
I'm gonna come back to that. I don't
Yeah, you don't have to, but
bush.
I just wanted to make a point that it's just shapes, you know, just try to think circle, triangle, oval, line.
Yeah, that's one of the things I want to be able to do is people.
Yeah, and keep and angles. That's all it is. The different shapes with the different angles and kind of move it around. Let's see. I'm going to remove me. Tom's like, yeah, whatever she says.
Yeah, all right. Oh, God.
Just got to give ourselves some time. So I've got down, I will send my sketches, my reference, my the fun little paintings I did. Again, they're not masterpiece. I am excited. I don't know if I told you, I got a painting going into the Fabriano show in Italy. It got delivered yesterday, and they're going to frame it up, and I was excited about that.
Ooh,
I know.
cool.
It's my second European painting. Yeah. Now I
Would
just
like
have to
add
start
my
following
art. Would you like to add
Huh?
this piece of my art to your Italian exhibit?
I
that
would
I'm just
love
finishing
to.
up?
I was invited to this. I'm like, really? You want one of my water? Because I consider myself a pastelist, but I'm going to start combining them more and more. They work very nicely together. Does anyone have something they want to show us? Would you like to
I'll
share
show
with
you-
the whole
I'll show you
group?
mine.
Who's
Gay.
okay? Gay. I got to
Yeah.
take a sec.
But
to
I
spotlight.
don't like my big trees very much.
Are they a little too heavy? Maybe.
Maybe.
Yep, it's really good. A little variegation maybe in those of color or something. You could add a little warmth in them too.
There's actually more than I think shows up on that, but
Yeah. And if you could
branches, I don't like the branches.
Okay, I like them. Okay. Yeah. I like the purple green in the background too. if you want to, please take a picture of yours, email it to me, and I'll put it on the end of the video if that's okay. I mean, the video is just for the classes and stuff. So, anyone else?
I have mine. I don't
Well,
know how you can see it.
Elaine, hold up.
There it
Can you
is.
see?
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
I like it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Kind
Very
of a different
good.
color palette because I couldn't really get to where you were, but I like the more purpley.
I do too, and it doesn't have to be what I use. So I really like this. Very nice. Very nice. You guys are awesome. All right. Let's see. Who else is? Claire is like smiling. Good. She's like, no, no, not showing. But play around with it. As I said, if you want, to practice, you can change the colors and make it think different seasons. What would you do if it were autumn? What if it was brilliant spring, when everything turns bright green, or snow? Ugh, snow. My class, my Patreon was just working with snow. We had some fun. I had like 3 people go, this is not a snow painting, because they decided not to do it. No other brave souls? I'm going to put you back up here.
so not brave.
Again, you're all, doing wonderful jobs for basically keep in mind how long you've really been painting. But you're creative. People, you're so creative, and just relaxing and having fun with it is the best thing. One, two, three, four, five people. I have to track the others down, but they'll get the video. I'll try to find a couple of supportive videos of this similar approach too. I'm wondering, I could send you like some of the salt and other techniques, and you can try it. It takes time, and you really have to time the salt between your sometime during your matte stage. It has to be early matte stage, so it's still kind of wet and not too dry. Also depends on which pigment you use, because each pigment works differently with the salt or the water spray and things. And I don't have that in my videos. I just have one sample. I should do that too. Yeah, I have lots of time. I'll just do.
I think part of the learning for me is trying to get the paint colors mixed up front. And when I'm working alone, I'll be able to do more of that. It's harder to do when I'm trying to follow.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's challenging what you were doing this time. Like I'm painting, I'm talking, and you're trying to follow me and paint at the same time, and it's a lot. But you'll get this video. You get to listen to me again. But hopefully you can pick up a couple things here and there that you didn't. You can also pause a video, which is nice. You have it. Wait a minute, pause it, and then you can continue on. Yeah, you don't, Clara. Just say hi.
For me, Terry Lynn, I think because this is totally new to me, I still am having a lot of problem with the brush strokes. I'm not quite sure what kind of how to use the brush for what kinds of things,
Okay.
and what brush to use for what kind of things. So that may be a little elementary, but that's still where I am.
That's very important. I'm looking for my paper just to make sure I can write this down. And I'll see if I have a little video on that too. And it's kind of hard in the class sometimes because you're all sitting far away from me. I should pull people closer to the table when I do the demos for sure. Maybe. Now, how are you doing? You look very thoughtful.
Me? Oh, I'm just still playing.
Great. Okay, brush strokes. Anything else I can kind of help with?
Yeah, in terms of brush strokes, I still have trouble when I have to do anything small. I maybe I'm using it too wet, but it tends to blend and get bigger, and I have trouble with a more defined chunk.
Depending, if the paper's wet, it's going to blend to get bigger too. Yeah. So there's all these things. Sometimes if you send me a shot or a section of the painting, you don't have to send the whole painting. I can understand better what you're
Okay.
talking about, or
I'll do
bring it
that.
into class and I'll look at it and I can usually figure out where you come from and what's happened. Good. Brush strokes. Yeah, and that's the wetness thing and knowing which
Right, I
part
think
is
that's
how
what it
wet
is,
and
the
all
wet.
that.
Yeah.
And that takes practice. Just grab your old paintings, things that haven't turned out, any scrap watercolor paper, because if you use a different paper, it's going to come out differently. And just play around and just experiment. Experiment makes a lot of things. So your paints are out now. You could, keep painting this afternoon. Or we could go take a nap on this dreary day. Well, thanks for showing up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for having
thank
the
you.
class.
Yeah.
I know. I'm glad this worked out. All right. You're all busy. Good to
Bye,
see you.
everyone.
I'll see
Thank
you
you.
next week, next Wednesday.
Thanks,
Have a
Okay,
great
bye.
day.
Caitlin. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.